direct recipient their own transit provider become a direct recipient. They have to enter into essentially just outlines that they're going to in the transportation planning process. So we have an agreement also with the City of Round Rock. We did that a couple of years ago, and we also have one straightforward item, just ensuring that we're all talking and planning together as they become a federal recipient of transportation funding. So with that, we are recommending approval of the memorandum and resolution 2023-4-8. So,
all right. Mayor, do you have a motion? Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes unanimously. Item number 9, discuss and take appropriate action on FM 1626 and RM 967 intersection study.
Good afternoon. I'm Will Liska, Regional Planning Manager for CAMPO. Is a partnership study between CAMPO and the City of Buda. For this study, CAMPO will lead an analysis of intersection improvements in Buda surrounding the junction of FM 1626 and RM 967. This study will identify multimodal safety and mobility needs and develop a context-sensitive vision that addresses both local and regional goals. This ILA will formalize the partnership between CAMPO and Buda for this study and will also allow for the transfer of local match funds from the City of Buda. While the purpose of this agenda item today is to take action on the interlocal agreement, I also want to point out that CAMPO has issued a request for proposal for planning services for this study with a due date of Friday, April 21st. CAMPO staff will be returning to the policy board at a future meeting to ask for authorization to negotiate and execute a contract with a top-ranked consultant firm from this RFP process. With that, staff requests the Transportation Policy Board to authorize the Executive Director to execute an interlocal agreement with the City of Buda for the FM 1626 and RM 967 intersection study.
Commissioner Inglesby moves and Mayor Hewson seconds that item. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, item number 10 has been pulled, or actually removed from the agenda, not pulled. It was removed from the agenda. Now we are on item number 11, discuss and take appropriate action on the lease agreement for office space with University Federal Credit Union.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in 2016, CAMPO moved into the space that we currently occupy at 3300 North I-35, which is essentially right across the street from St. David's Hospital. Our lease agreement was at the time for 7 years, and believe it or not, that 7 years has already passed. And so our lease is over at the end of October of this year. So CAMPO staff last year began the process of looking at office space again, so we employed a commercial broker. It's the same person that we used last time, 7 years ago. And for about the last 9 months or so, we have gone across the region and looked at multiple places that could be potential office, including the space that we're currently in. After looking in several places and seeing what the rates were, because I was shocked at some of the rates that I saw, they had more than doubled, in some cases tripled, since we had negotiated the lease that we're in 7 years ago. And more than once I said to them, I'm reading the paper and it's telling me that everybody is teleworking and rates ought to be going down. And they said, no. No, that's not what we're seeing in Austin, and the rate is this rate. So after some searching, we were able to find adequate space for us at the University Federal Credit Union building located at STEC and MOPAC. The space works for us. One, it's in the center, just about at the geographic center of the region. So we're sort of equidistant from all of you. But we're also, it's easy for us pretty much to get downtown. If we need to get downtown, it's easy for us to get to the Texas District Office. So now pretty much we just get on the slip ramp and get on 183 and come off at 35, and we're at the district office. So the space is good. We were able to negotiate a very fair rate, and we're looking forward to that space. And I'm looking to see if the broker is here, and I don't see him. So the lease that we're looking to enter now that we're asking for approval of ratification of is a 10-year lease. So, and we're getting a very good rate. So with that, Madam Chair, I'll stop and ask for ratification of the lease.
And just, and when Ashby says ratification, because we didn't have our March meeting, due to a timing issue, he had to go ahead and sign that. I touched base with the officers, and they concurred that we were okay with doing that and bringing that forward to this meeting for ratification. So is there a motion to ratify that signature?
Houston will make that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right, thank you. Oh, and I'm sorry, I forgot to welcome Commissioner Dockery. So that second was Commissioner Dockery, Burnett County. Any discussion? Good job, and very, very favorable rates, and...
Can we make it 20 years or 30?
Chair, I have a quick
Yes.
question. Is this going to change the location of our policy board meetings, or are we still going to be in this room?
No, it just is the office space.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
we'll still have equal access to him. We can find him from here on.
I think you'll probably be able to find him easier and park easier.
Just making sure, you're not.
And the parking won't cost you anything either.
There you go.
Improvements every day.
There you go. All right. Any other discussion? All in favor of ratification? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Seeing none, motion passes unanimously. Item number 12. This is an update on TDM program. Nirav, is that you?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is just a basic update on the regional TDM program, just to give some background for some new policy board members. In 2019, in September 2019, this board adopted the regional TDM program. And so for y'all who don't know, TDM is essentially a set of strategies designed to reduce the strain on the surface transportation network. Basically, when a lot of people go from the same place to the same time, it creates traffic. TDM is designed to reduce that. So through a series of
Now,
strategies.
that was a simple explanation.
That's the shortest I can make it. Basically, if you decide to leave earlier or later due to traffic, that's TDM. If you take a carpool, a van pool, or transit, that is TDM. If you choose to ride your bike or walk, that is TDM. What the plan was meant to do was to try to coalesce those strategies to a more unified one for the region. At that time, again, it was September 2019 that the plan was adopted. The crux of the plan was to market or emphasize the benefits of working from home to major employers. A few months later, that was completely unnecessary. Y'all know why. So what we had to do was remodel TDM to fit the post-pandemic environment, particularly in terms of people who still had to work, essential employees essentially. There was taken into consideration equity and whatnot. Part of the plan also involved creating the TAC TDM subcommittee, and that is chaired by the vice chair of TAC, Gary Hutter. He could not be here today, but he asked me to convey to the board that the TAC TDM subcommittee completely supports the direction of the TDM program and wants to continue the strong working relationship between staff and the TDM subcommittee. Here, I'm going to turn it over right now to Jody Gray, who is the president of Urban Trans. They are our consultant who are going to manage and implement the TDM program, and she's going to bring you up to date. So Jody, please.
Thank you. Over with you what we were able to accomplish the last several months. We took that 2019 regional TDM plan and really it laid the foundations for the implementation framework. It had goals in there that really led the way, but we knew we needed to discover a little bit more what has happened recently post COVID-19. So we did all that. We talked to the community and we were able to develop draft strategies, which I'll talk about today, in an implementation framework. So the next slide just talks a little bit about our planning process. And we did do quite a bit of community input, as I mentioned. We did stakeholder interviews, we had a community survey, we had focus groups, and the TAC TDM subcommittee really helped us every step of the way through the planning process. That, combined with the data gathering and the existing conditions analysis, really led to a group of strategies, and we were able to develop very detailed implementation plans for each of those strategies. So the next slide is a little bit about what we learned. Not surprising probably to any of us in this room, but low-income travelers are 5 to 10 times more likely to have trouble getting around. We also heard from the community that they wanted more access to park and ride lots, and they were very interested in guaranteed ride home. And that program is basically an insurance policy that if you take transit or you carpool to work and an unexpected emergency arises, like your kid gets sick or you have to work overtime, it gives you a ride home up to a limited amount per year. We also heard a lot about construction, both existing and upcoming construction, and travelers wanting to know more information and also relief from the construction impacts. So the next slide is really our five key focus areas that we drilled down on and tried to find more information. And one was support for the existing program that's already out there today. The other is targeting congested corridors and those construction corridors. Support for our essential workers, those people who have to travel, they can't telework, that no matter what, they need to get to the job. Support for rural TDM strategies, and increasing regional coordination amongst the people who are already out there doing TDM and new folks that are going to be doing it. So the strategies that we landed on, which I'll go through really briefly, but I'm going to talk about what's exciting, what we're implementing today. But the strategies are school pool programming, implementing that regional guaranteed ride home program that I just discussed, providing transportation assistance to our essential workers, targeting the congested corridors, increasing multimodal access around the park and ride lots, the major transportation project construction mitigation, and helping large event operators increase carpooling to special events and whatnot. So what we're doing today to help launch all these activities, we did develop detailed action plans for every one of these strategies. But really what we're doing today is developing that regional brand and marketing messages. That's really going to be the foundation for the program. So we're getting the messaging right. People can start really recognizing what we're doing as the regional TDM program. And we're also maintaining the Commute Solutions website, if you're familiar with that, the ride matching and trip planning tools. So you can help find a carpool partner, you can help get a ride to the big events. And we're also piloting School Pool. And School Pool is that program that where parents and family members can help find other parents and family members so that we can share a ride to school. And it's locked down so just that school can find ride matches with each other. And not only to carpool, but also to walk together, to bike together. And so we're just beginning that. If any of you have any recommendations for schools, please let us know. And we're also beginning implementation of the evaluation framework, because every single thing we do, we want to evaluate it and be able to provide you with measurable results. So that really briefly is an overview on the TDM program. Any questions?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
Just a couple of things. I thought the work was excellent, first of all, and I just wanted to speak about a couple of areas. Travis County has used transit development programs in conjunction with Cap Metro to make sure that we can get people to clinics that are difficult for them to get to. We have a Metro Access program. So when we're operating within Capital Metro's service area, that's something that we ought to consider that extends out to Maynard. So I wanted to make sure that you knew that we had a transit development program there, and that access to health resources is something that is critical in that in those areas that have a lot of Title I schools in them, where 60% or more of the kids qualify for free and reduced lunch. We have also found that, and we've put some after-action reports together on our response to the pandemic. And one place that we consistently used to serve the community was their neighborhood school. Every neighborhood has one, easy to get there, underutilized, if you will. And then the other thought is to how do we map festivals and events that are in the area. And for us in Travis County, our fire marshal is the one who receives all of the requests and all of the plans. So asking for the number of permits, asking to see who put a plan together to stay in compliance, to do all of the things in order to be permitted. That would be a wealth of data, I think, certainly in Travis County, I'm sure in surrounding counties as well. And then we developed a specific outreach plan to communities at Cap Metro. So if you have not seen that, you might ask for a copy.
Oh, that's fantastic, yeah.
All right. Any other comments? Yes, go ahead.
Hello, Vanessa Fuentes, Austin City Council. Thank you, Commissioner Trevelyan. I would also like to see Cap Metro's plan as well. I'm curious to take a look.
I will get it for you today.
Thank you. My question is, with this plan, with the traffic demand management strategies that you've outlined, which I think are brilliant, who will be tasked with actually implementing these strategies? Will it be someone with CAMPO, like CAMPO staff themselves, or will this be with a partner?
So that's a great question. Do you want me to?
That's the responsibility of CAMPO staff, so you would coordinate with CAMPO staff.
Okay, but let me add a caveat to that. Some of these are very local.
Yes.
So while CAMPO staff can serve to coordinate, school pool, that's, a guardian talking to another guardian. I mean, there's some very local, hyper-local things. So, and so I think there's an asterisk beside the CAMPO staff involvement.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. That was what I was going to ask is, do CAMPO staff, knowing that this will take an immense coordination to implement, does CAMPO have the capacity to deliver on the implementation of these strategies?
Yes, that's why, one, we have our consultant team to help us out with that. Two is, the important thing is to scale up and not overwhelm ourselves. So we're trying to start with a few schools right now. We're in conversation with the Del Valley ISD, and they have selected one campus to start off with, Del Valley Elementary. We're still in conversation with them, haven't officially approved, but we're in conversations with them. The reason that school really appealed to them was because just about all of their students live too close to qualify for bus service, so they thought that school pool would be a great tool to help alleviate their traffic problems for pickup and drop-off.
Great. I'm thrilled to hear that you're coordinating with Del Valle ISD. We also have Circuit of the Americas, those large-scale events, Formula One, MotoGP, that going to your other strategy for large-scale events. So I think there's a lot of synergy out in Southeast Travis County for sure. And can you remind me the consulting firm, the name of the consulting firm that you're working with?
What's that?
Urban Trans.
Urban Trends? Okay.
Trans.
Okay, thank you.
So, council member, one of the things I was going to mention, so you mentioned Circuit of the Americas right now is potentially bringing on Dr. Tim Lomax. He used to be with the Texas Transportation Institute. He's now retired in the last month or so. But he, several years ago, was working with Circuit of the Americas on traffic plans and also on, I'll call them mitigation strategies for dealing with some of the crowds that come out there and trying to provide alternative ways for folks to get to and from CODA. I'm looking at potentially hiring him, not just to look at CODA, but to look at what we call, in our terminology, special events. So it could be South by Southwest, it could be ACL, a number of things, because as a region and as a community, we have so many special events that they're really not special. They're normal now for us, but they have huge impacts on traffic. So I was looking at bringing him on board potentially to help us along with, and I've started having conversations with Director Mendoza in Public Works and with Jim Dale in now Public Works. So, and we're looking at not just City of Austin, but also we've got events in Round Rock, and we've got now events in parts of Bastrop County and Caldwell County. Those things are starting to proliferate, so I want to try to get a handle on what some of that means. So we're having those discussions about trying to do that.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember.
Thank you. I'm really glad to see us advancing a TDM policy. I do have some questions about the operationalization of this and the role of CAMPO and how we're coordinating with. How, in the implementation, are we partnering with existing organizations that are focused on TDM?
So, of course, we have the TAC TDM Subcommittee, which our members include the City of Austin, Travis County, City of Round Rock, I can't remember at the moment who else, but that all happens on a case-by-case basis of who you need to coordinate with for which strategy. So, again, for school pool, we would coordinate specifically with whichever school. For the large event, we would coordinate with, the event, the venue, the operator. Obviously, for anything involving employers, we'd coordinate with the movability of Central Texas. So it's all case specific.
Okay. I'm still wondering about, CAMPO doing the implementation part. We have movability, for instance, that does it for employers, but now we're going to add another layer. I'm just not understanding how that's
CAMPO does
working.
the coordination. We do the...
It's not the implementation, but the coordination.
Yeah.
Okay, so where are we spending the money when we go to do the $4 million? What is that being spent on?
So really, what CAMPO will be doing is be providing the umbrella organization over the TDM strategy in the region, providing the resources, the website, the tools, the marketing materials, all of those sorts of things. It'll be up to each of the individual governments or the local nonprofits if they want to actually implement the strategies themselves using the tools that are being given, or if they want CAMPO staff to come in and actually implement TDM in their communities. So even school pool, for example, there'll be all sorts of materials that are developed that any school can use. It'll be up to them if they also want the staff assistance to help implement the programs. And Lisa Kay's here from Movability too, our TMA in our region, and this program will be working very closely to make sure we're not stepping on anybody's toes, or, we'll be having a seamless message going out to everybody. That's the goal.
Thank you. I would really like to ask that before you bring this back for the request for the money, that we make sure that those groups are involved in a conversation. I think there's still some confusion here, that I want to make sure that we're investing our dollars in the most effective way here. And I think that those conversations may still need to happen. The other question I had is that we have a rather new group of the Construction Partnership Program, which is a collective of a bunch of the local government organizations and different groups who are trying to think about how we coordinate all the many massive construction projects that we're undergoing in our region, so that we can coordinate those in effective ways and have some economies of scale where possible. So how is this TDM program coordinated with that Construction Partnership Program?
So at this point, council member, we're still sort of in early days on the construction management program and what that looks like. So CAMPO is part of that conversation, but a lot of that conversation is really driven between TxDOT Austin District, Capital Metro because of Project Connect, and City of Austin right now with Public Works. So we're having conversations around that and still forming that. And I'll ask Heather if she wants to contribute to the response, but we're still working through what that looks like. I can tell you that as part of major construction projects like CapEx, there are traffic management plans and construction plans that are built into the contracts. So those things are there. We're having conversations as part of this construction management group about things like detours, but also there's been some discussion about perhaps some centralized parking for those folks that will actually be constructing the new roadways. So we're talking about that as well and working through that. But a lot of that right now, council member, is really between the folks that are building the projects.
Yeah, I would just encourage that collaboration. I think there's a real opportunity here as we try to operationalize the ideas that are in this plan to be using that group as part of that. And then my last question has to do with My Commute Solutions. Can you speak to what the status is of that? I mean, that's our TDM program that we had CAMPO take over, and I'm just curious of the status and how active that's been and where that fits into this.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
I would like to better understand the status of My Commute Solutions, which we had delegated back to CAMPO a few years ago, and how successful that's been as a program.
Do you mean active in terms of like how many people visit the site every day, or?
I mean, ideally, how many trips we're keeping off the road through?
There are about, so Travis County and the City of Austin are the biggest users of Commute Solutions, primarily because those two agencies have incentive programs providing additional leave for people who register their not single occupancy vehicles on Commute Solutions. Usually it's about, I would say about 1,200 people a month actively use the Commute Solutions website.
Thank you. I may have some follow-up later. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Mayor.
Thank you. The strategies look. Any insight into the motivation of people, because we can create programs all day and throw money after it, but if we're not reaching them and telling them what's in it for them, we're just spinning our wheels, for lack of a better term. And so I'm wondering if your studies have looked at, I see you've got this quote about, if you have to decide whether to go somewhere, you may decide not to go because there's so much time involved. Have you looked at all of those factors that go into it that make people want to do like a school pool instead of just hop in the car in my pajamas and go down to the school and drop them off because it's easy? Because this region has a serious motivation problem with that, because it is so easy to get around in your car on your own.
Yes. That's really why when I said our foundational project is the marketing plan, because that's going to be addressing how do we message the right thing at the right time. And construction's a really great example because it's a pain point, right? And why not take advantage of that pain point to get people into alternative transportation? Hey, just try it. Just try it once. See if it works for you. And so that's a lot. We'll be tailoring the messaging for the type of strategy that's out there. And really right now, the schools that we're working with are schools that are really highly motivated because they're having on-site congestion issues. So that'll be great to pilot the program at these, and then once we have some successes under our belt, we can go out to other schools and say, hey, look what the school did, what best practices, it's okay, parents are doing this, a little bit of social norming. So everything will have a very specific marketing strategy that's built on exactly what you're talking about, motivations.
Thank you. For me, I think that's the biggest part that I would like to see in the future is
is what that insight is, what is the roadblock that's keeping people from accessing programming.
I honestly think this is why things should be piloted too, so we can truth test things and evaluate and reiterate and all of that as we're doing it. Because you might go in really thinking you do understand what the pain point is, but not quite until you go in there and is this messaging resonating? Why or why not? Are we getting traction in the programming? So everything we've built in a very stringent evaluation process so we can pivot very quickly if something isn't working. I know that was important to you all, so we really wanted to build that into this.
Thank you.
So.
All right, thank you. Ms. Patel.
Yes, thanks. So how the TDM program has moved through CAMPO, and now we have a new $4 million being proposed to fund that we would vote on next month. Is there an opportunity here to formalize the TDM subcommittee into something that includes members beyond the TAC? For example, to give Movability Austin their own seat on it. And then that way we have the opportunity to make sure that services that Movability is providing aren't being redundantly replicated by CAMPO.
You know, we established the subcommittee, and I think there was some intent to keep implementers as advisory, but not voting members. But I think all that's up for discussion. But there was some attempt to keep that dividing line of if you're an implementer versus an interested party. But I think for this particular discussion, if you've got suggestions, please send them this way. But this was just the kind of the beginning stages. There's a whole lot still to work out. So, yes.
I kind of, well, first of all, I look around the room, I'm like, okay, I'm become one of the OG members of this board, which feels totally weird. Because now I'm looking at this, I can't believe we had this in 2019, because I remember a lot of the, let's call it spirited discussions that we had around TDM on this board for several years. And I want to also give public credit again to Commissioner Shea. This is something that she's championed for years, so it's proud to see where we get to. And I want to be blunt. It's a big deal to get to this point right now, because it took a lot of hard work and effort and conversations to even get to a discussion regarding TDM. You're right, we talked about working from home before working from home was a thing. And that's what we were looking at explicitly with TDM, for you to be able to adapt and see and get information regarding, frankly, a lot of the most vulnerable people in our region who are affected by this is significant. In the pilot programs regarding school pools and everything those aspects, and trying to go to those persons areas that frankly don't get enough attention to us in this region. Additionally speaking, we had a long conversation when we were talking about I-35 and a lot of these major projects going on in the region, that we said, okay, this is going to happen, and this is going to have major ramifications on our traffic impact for our citizens across the region. So we've got to talk about ideas and getting them ready for right there as well. This right here, this opportunity, as you said, to educate folks and get them working regarding these different programs and ideas, that's a huge deal that will actually probably have major ramifications after these projects are implemented right here. I get it. Right now, this is not the perfect ideal thing working from there as well, but it's a great start. And for us to be able to go ahead and start working with some of those partners, trying to flesh out some of the programs that existed prior to this to see how they can be for that, that's a big deal. And I've got to give credit. We also talked about for years about how the CAMPO board has been a very interesting board, working unifiedly together to go ahead and get objectives done. This is an establishment of what we can do when we actually do agree to actually make a discernible difference in people's lives and differences right here as well. So I say, great job with this right here. Let's move forward, start talking to partners and seeing what we can gauge from, get that information back to see what we can do that. It's a 4-year program, I see from there as well. I think this is a great way for us to spend money and trying to truly change some of the, honestly, behaviors that we have in our region.
Oh, sorry, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Chair. A lot of good points being made on this. I know that the city has had success with TDM strategies, and I know we like to be forward-thinking about that too as we tackle policy. among ourselves. One thing that might be helpful as this conversation expands is to be able to have some sort of, documentation of just roles and responsibilities, who's lead for certain conversations, where is it just consulting and coordination and someone else is really the lead strategist for it, just so we can help visualize making sure that we're not duplicating work and spending money that we don't have to if someone else is already tackling that responsibility, and really making sure that we can get these dollars to stretch as far as possible, because I think there's a lot of good innovative strategies happening with this. It's just a little hard for me to envision who's taking lead, who is supporting. Electeds know of any other organizations that are more localized that we know who to connect them with. For instance, if a school comes to me and says, we would like to try out this school pool, I'm not sure who to call other than sending everything to Ashby, and maybe that's appropriate, but it might help us to have that documentation of how do we help connect the dots as policymakers.
And just as a reminder, I mean, we're getting kind of into the weeds on some of this. This is strategies, and that's at a high level. The objectives and the action steps, those are going to come later. So I think because we've got some other items on this agenda, I will take one more question if it's short.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Just a statement really quick. I just want everybody to recognize that when we put our program together, it is not a simple thing. It took 18 groups working 18 months to actually sit down and hammer out where people were going. We picked a site, used it as a pilot for 6 months, decided it was not the most effective one, moved it to a site that has been very effective. It's not something that is easy and can be done overnight. It takes considerable commitment and considerable analytical resources to get things done. So let's not think that this is going to be child's play. This is going to be significant work over a long period of time to actually get results that ultimately are but where we get responsible answers and can make reasonable policy choices. So it's not simple. Seems simple. So.
The story afterwards is always prettier than the sausage making in between.
So just wanted to throw that out there.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. All right, thank you very much for your presentation. We look forward to future updates. Item number 13, update on the UTP. And it looks like Mr. Lawson left. I should have told him to stay.
Still here.
Oh, good. Okay, sorry. See you there.
I was looking for myself.
Yes. So stay tuned. Go ahead, Heather.
And this, which one do I have? Are you going to do it? Okay.
I'll just start off presentation very well in your reference back to 2019 and some of those decisions, because I'll be refreshing some of those today. All right, here we go. So I'm here today to talk about the 2024 draft UTP and the 183A frontage road project as one of those. So just a little bit of history, like we were mentioning. I know some of you were here and remember all too well, and some of this would be a refresher. I know it was a refresher for me when I put this together. So in May of 2019, the CAMPO Policy Board voted $500 million worth of actions, and part of that was to fund CapEx North and CapEx South, but it also put $100 million to the 183A frontage road project and the RM 620 project at in April, the Texas Transportation Commission did an out-of-cycle UTP amendment and added $3.4 billion to Capital Express Central. The previous one was for North and South, and this created a $934 million funding gap in the $4.9 billion CapEx Central project. So in order to fund that gap, TxDOT asked the policy board to choose $633 million worth of projects. 160.5% of that was Cat 7, and 472.5 of that was categories 2 and 4 to make the 633. And part of that board meeting is that the deferred projects would be the next on the list in terms of prioritization in the next funding opportunities. So after that June action, the Texas Transportation Commission in August adoption of the UTP funded the remaining $300 million for the 4.9. And I can tell you in the almost 3 years, we've been hard at work on all of the projects, and out of that 633, 164 million of that got funded through actions of this board, part of it through the 23 UTPs, some of it local or TxDOT funded, and some of the 22 UTP. Now, this is our submittal that we submitted in February of this year. This hasn't gone public yet. It's the first time we're going public with this list of projects. But what you see there is I color-coded them. The top projects there are all environmentally cleared and plans are ready to go. The middle tier there are environmentally clear, and we're working on the PS&E for those as well. So I'll just kind of go through them. The 71 grade separations at Tucker Hill, Pope Bend, and 1209, along with 3237 there. These projects are all ready to go. Plans on the shelf, and I didn't
lots of people doing the happy dance today.
I didn't put the let year on these because we have it's been a long time coming for us to have a very good process at TxDOT to do what I've called plans on the shelf. So we have a really good process, and some of these are in the outer years, but because they're ready, if we're low in our lettings, we have a great process statewide for us to pick those projects that are ready and move them forward, as long as we don't break the tip or the stip. And so those green projects at the top, all of these are being draft refunded in the 24 UTP with categories 2 and 4. And I'll in the bottom tiers there, the environmental is underway for these. RM 620 Anderson Mill, we've been hard at work at that one. We anticipate environmental finding at the end of this year. The 360 interchanges at Lakewood and Spicewood, we're working on those as well. So you'll notice that it was Cat 7 at 25 million, and we're refunding it with categories 2 or 4 at 47. Look there, the 266 original estimates has now turned into 557 million, which we're looking to fund those in this 24 UTP. So that's a 48% increase that we've seen since 2019 to fund those. The three southern end of it, so we are going to be procuring a contract to start that environmental in the next year, and that added up to 100 million, which those are the old estimates, and so those have opportunities to be funded in future UTPs, but also because they're top 100, they have opportunities for other funding as well. And really, the only ones left here, there's a few TxDOT ITS and then other sponsored projects in the total of 80 in the last 3 years, advancing these projects that had been deferred. Unfortunately, now we're getting them into the process into the UTP. We're putting on plans on the shelf so that we can advance them as we can. And again, I think I mentioned this a little bit last time in February, but this is the Category 7 to 10-year allocations per fiscal year. The first 3 years of this next 24 UTP, 4, 5, and 6, those are allocated funds towards I-35. But starting in 2027, we have a good $47 million per year that we can start doing exactly what we're doing on the other projects, is getting them ready, putting them on the shelf, and then bringing them forward as they get developed. So that total remaining 10-year allocation is $218 million that we could kind of start targeting projects for that allocation. So this is the action, or not the action, just the discussion item today, is that, as mentioned before, the RM620 Anderson Mill had been 100% Cat 7. We're proposing to fund it at $47 million with categories 2 and 4. And if you notice up there, the 183A frontage road projects is one of the projects that was not deferred. The frontage road project currently is an August letting. We're trying really hard. There's a lot of hurdles. The funding gap is one of those. And so we're asking to partner, as we've shared that category 2 and 4, to swap, if you will, and put $25 million at Cat 7 onto the 183A frontage road project to make it fully funded. So that ends my presentation, and I can open it up for questions, comments.
So the Cat 7 impact is the same. It's still $100 million. It's just you're moving Anderson Mill 620 to Cat 2.
You're correct, yes.
Okay. Which is good news, because both of those needed more funding. And I think, Ryan, you're going to address, because that's not all the projects. There's some other locally sponsored projects and that are beyond the TxDOT list that were deferred.
Yeah. So the second part of this item, and we can pull it up, and she showed it up there, the deferred projects.
I'm sorry, were there any questions on this particular part of the presentation? Commissioner Howard.
Thank you. Could you just explain to me, when you say we, is this, what kind of royal we is this about the categories 2 and 4? I just want to make sure the money's really there.
So the Unified Transportation Program is our 10-year worth of projects. Move through the years 6 through 10. That's really just what we forecast our budget to be. And then as you get into the 4-year TIP and STIP window, those are committed construction funds. So we can bring, well, these are draft submittals that we'll have in the 24 UTP. That will go public in July before commission action in August. So there's an opportunity to comment on all of those projects that will go. I mentioned they will be in the outer years of the UTP, but we do have opportunity if there's a call from our statewide level, and we have a process for that now, that we could offer the available projects if we could bring them in and still not break our TIP STIP window. So just getting them into that 10-year window offers us a lot of opportunities to advance them all the way to final design.
Okay. I guess I'm just looking for some comfort here that if we vote to take out the $25 million to authorize that from the 620 Anderson Mill project, that you're talking about ability to get the money from category 2 and 4 is as certain as it was with having it from category 7.
So the certainty is that we're going to submit it into the draft UTP, and once that would be adopted, that would be the avenue for that. But we're just offering that. The district in February looked at all of our allocations, submitted their projects that met their allocation that was given.
Okay.
So, Commissioner Howard, let me try to help a little bit. The categories, the funding categories 2 and 4 are made up of mostly statewide money coming out of propositions 1 and 7, and due to the receipts in the past couple of years, they're Rich's creases right now. So there's a lot of money sitting there, and the comptroller was saying before session started that this was going to be more than they've ever seen before. So some of that money that the comptroller referenced is this money that we're also talking about here. So there, I feel comfortable that there's a there. So yeah, I think that's helpful. And then the other part that I also wanted to bring up, and Councilmember Alter, this goes back to the 2 360 grade separations that are still on the list but not funded yet, and also Commissioner Beckett for the 71 items. Heather was saying how if we get things ready and put them on the shelf, even though they're in the outer years, there's a fair chance they can get pulled up. If y'all will recall, at the, I think it was the January or the February board meeting, I showed you a table that showed the large metropolitan planning organizations in the state and which ones were utilizing their funding the best, and we were at the top of that list. Some of our counterparts are not spending their money very well. Having projects pulled forward and using those to get out.
Which used to be us.
Which used to be us.
Thank you, Ashby. All right. Any other questions for Heather or on? Okay, so we'll go to the B part of this discussion.
Okay. Thank you. So 13B, really just kind of building off of what she was talking about, is the amount of funding that we have available in CAT 7 beginning in 2027. So what we're going to do, this is the deferred list. Is here. This is the most up-to-date deferred list that we have, and essentially, the 620 is going to come off of this. We've got 2 Travis County projects and 2 City of Austin projects, and over the next couple of months, I've already reached out to the project sponsors, the project managers, to kind of get a high-level look at when they'll be ready and what the current cost is, where it is in the project development process. But over the next few months, we're going to get back with them and work with TxDOT as well to see when they can actually be rescheduled. So we want to bring back a recommendation to the policy board back in probably late summer, August or September, I think would probably be the appropriate time there. So one of the things in that process, we're going to look at where it is in the project development process. But part of this conversation, I think, that will need to be had at the time is we're also going to look at inflation impacts and see what the projects cost now versus what they were when they deferred, because we've got our current authorized funding, see if that's still valid. So we're going to take a hard look at that and bring that back to the policy board for future discussion. So just wanted to let y'all know, be aware that this is coming down the pipe, and hopefully we can knock out this list and then move forward with a project call for new projects in the outer years as well. So that's really the gist of this item. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Ryan, there's, I think, 3 projects that aren't on this list. Hayes County has a project, I think City of Austin did, City of Cedar Park did, that were ones that got deferred, but those different entities stepped up and did some funding. And we need to see those on this list because they were deferred, and I don't want Hayes County or the City of Austin or City of Cedar Park to be penalized for good behavior. So that's something that the board's going to have to figure out how to grapple with and come back with some recommendations. So please, by omission, I don't want those to be forgotten. So please make sure that we include those while they are not waiting for funding. They were granted in that 2018 process and deferred in 2020. So we need to make sure that those stay on the list and that as a board we address those.
Absolutely. We'll give you a full comprehensive list with everything on it. So,
all right. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions about this list? Oh, I didn't see your hand. Sorry. Council.
I didn't see it. Thank you. I'm really excited to see the possibilities here. Ashby, you mentioned the category 2 and 4 funds being flush. Where does the infrastructure, the federal money for the Infrastructure Act fit into this funding for these deferred projects?
I mean, it's really just the SCPG funding that was authorized. We got, a little more through the infrastructure bill, higher than normal. We used to get around $35 million a year, and it's moving up to around 47 in the years we're looking to refund these. So there is more funding available.
funding that this board allocates.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but when we have these lists, you know, if that's the order and we're getting them ready so that they can go as fast as we have the funding, do we have a sense of how much more of that money is going to be there? Is it just the...
Or how much more of the IIJA money?
Yeah.
We have estimates that we get both from Federal Highway Administration and from TxDOT, and we're fairly confident the numbers are usually not off by much.
Okay.
The only thing I would tell you, some sort of an accounting error that happened with federal highways that they just found a few months ago, and it's about $3.5 billion. They switched over from one accounting system to another, and somebody lost $3.5 billion. So they're trying to figure out how they're going to come up with that, basically. And what's being discussed right now is which categories they might pull that money out of, and depending on that, we may see some changes, probably down, not up. For us, Bureau just came out a few months ago with the new across the country, and we have at least one more in Texas. So now Eagle Pass is going to be an MPO in the next few years, so that will be money out of the pot, because the pot didn't get bigger. That's going to be money out of the pot that wasn't there before. And then those MPOs that are over 200,000 funding, and we in Texas also saw those change. So we've got 3 new areas over 200,000. So I just want to keep that in front of y'all. So while I'm somewhat confident in the numbers, we're probably going to see some changes over the next few years.
Thank you.
But they shouldn't be huge.
So if there's no other comments on that, we'll move on to item number 14, 5310 project call.
Yeah. Thank you. So I'll just go quickly through this because I know we've been here a little while. So this is...
Let any other ones go. Sorry.
I can actually cut to the chase because we've actually got some really good news with this. So the 5310 program, we know it's a grant program. It's Cap Metro's program, but we have an agreement with them to do the project selection of 5310 funding. This is a program that really helps those in need. It's elderly individuals and those with disabilities. It really helps support them through transportation programs. And so we do this project selection process every 2 years now. We used to do it every year. And so we're going through the evaluation process right now. We're going to bring this back for action next month. And the reason we can bring it back for action is, so we went through the readiness evaluation, we're going through the scoring process, but wanted to talk about, we have, through initial screening, essentially we can fund every request that was received. Wow. So we're really excited about that. One of the things I want to point out, though, is that we are still scoring these projects. We're still going to rank them and score them because we have the funding, we still need to ensure that it's actually a worthwhile program to fund. But having done that initial review, I feel fairly confident in saying that we're going to make a recommendation to fund everything. So that's really exciting. These are really good programs. A couple of, City of Austin, CARTS is a new recipient. They're requesting some vans. Cap Metro's Office of Mobility Management Program. We've got a lot of nonprofits here as well that do this, so it's actually an exciting opportunity. So we'll bring this back next month for recommendation. And again, all the funding that you see available, whatever's left over gets rolled over into the next project call, so it's not going anywhere. Just wanted to point that out. So, but I think it's a really good opportunity and good news for the region. So,
Ryan, one of the things that some of the board members have asked me about this is for the applicants here that that we think have good programs moving forward. Are we going to go back to them now and say, hey, there's an opportunity to potentially have some more money, and just go ahead and see if they want to scale up their programs to perhaps meet the amount that's available?
we can look into that. I think one of the things we wanted to, we're on a pretty tight schedule as far as getting the agreements in place before the next fiscal year. So I'll check with Cap Metro to see if it's, because that may take a little bit of time, or we could potentially look at, Yeah, we can look into that.
Matt,
I'm trying to think how long that would take, but absolutely something we can do, though. So,
But there are timeframes we've got to meet in order to get this done.
I'm sorry?
There are timeframes that have to be met in order to get through this cycle.
Yeah, the schedule is so we need to get these agreements in place before the next fiscal year starts. And that's, in September, and it takes about a few months to get those agreements in place once we make the selection. Cap Metro has a lot of paperwork to do on their end. But that's certainly a worthwhile thing to do, I think.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner.
May I? So what I'm always interested in is our current capacity, what we're able to serve now versus what the demand is. And it would be interesting to see which zip code areas or census tracts are served by these dollars. Because maybe there's some areas that we know are underserved areas, and maybe the discussion of equity can happen within that context. So what is our capacity? How many widgets how many rides have we been able to deliver over a period of time? Is there a manner in which we can determine what the demand is, and then who are we serving?
Yeah.
And who could and maybe should be served based on out-migration patterns within the region.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I want to point out that this is really related to the RTCC, and a lot of things you're talking about are where are those gaps in service. How can we help those that have these issues? And so that's part of the application process, is making sure not only does this support the RTCC's updated regional transit plan, but we have all that data in the applications themselves, so we can bring that back and do like kind of a step back look and see exactly how this is looking as in totality, I think, from a regional perspective. But that's a really good point, because everything that's in the RTC plan, all those gaps, everything you see, that's what this is designed to address. And so the stronger it scores, the more it's addressing those gaps. But we'll have all that data for you for sure. We get those from the applications. So,
thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, thank you, Ryan. We will move on to item number 15, Ashby Executive Director's Report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Only one thing to report. So last year, we asked this body to approve funding for CAMPO staff to do a Northeast Burnett County mobility study. And we had gone through the procurement process, and this board authorized me to negotiate with the firm, and we only had one firm that submitted, even though we put it out twice. Unfortunately, after we got into negotiations with the firm, and we were in negotiations for a few months, we were at an impasse on budget. So the numbers that were coming back to us from the firm were more than 3 times what was advertised. As a result, we have notified the firm that we are at an impasse, and we can't give them $485,000 for a $150,000 budget. So what we have done is transferred that work to our general engineering consultant, BGE. If you look at the scope of work they were given when that contract was approved a few years ago, planning is part of that work. We are not in violation of federal. This is because that BGE contract was done through federal procurement process. So I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that in the spirit of transparency.
All right. So I'll move on to just announcements.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just one very quick thing. We have found that various transit institutes at universities have been helpful for us. Of students, 15 to 20 students that work over a period. I have no objection to what was done, only as a recommendation as we go forward. We've been able to get a lot of really constructive work done for a lot less than we anticipated. So just, I understand that we're moving forward and the process is appropriate. Just a thought, we worked with Texas State and we've worked with Texas A&M, and they have given us top-rate work, even though I'm a Longhorn.
I was about to say Longhorns do good work on this stuff, too. as well.
All right. So
Thank you, Commissioner.
And just by way of a reminder, the next TAC meeting is April the 24th. The next policy board meeting is same, the 8th, at 3:54 p.m.
He's got one more thing.
Oh, wait a minute.
I forgot one more thing. Thank you,
Oh.
Vice Chair. So
Apparently, Ashby
actually, this, what's the date, Joyce? For
April 10th.
Oh, thank you. So the 50th anniversary of CAMPO is actually this month, and we were going to have some treats for y'all at this meeting, and we had issues finding folks to be able to get us the treats at the time that we needed them, and we had a long agenda, and I didn't want Chair Long taking off her glasses and looking at me, because that means you better hurry up. So we're going to move that to next month, so we'll have something for the board and some 50-year.
Congratulations.
Thank
Yes,
you.
congratulations. We have survived 50 years. So that's awesome. All right, so now we are adjourned.
We have thrived over 50 years.